Hi Failey, this my real story. My son said you're not family. A week later the house keys didn't work, I sold it. I used to think silence was peaceful. But the silence that filled my house that night was different. It was sharp, almost violent. The kind that makes you hear your own breathing and wonder when your life became so unbearably quiet. My son Daniel had just told me I wasn't family anymore. And somehow those words hurt more than the divorce, more than losing my marriage, my home, and the years I thought were built on love. Not family. 2 words, cold and final. They hung in the air between us like broken glass, reflecting everything we used to be and everything we no longer were. You don't forget a moment like that. You replay it, again and again, trying to find the point where everything went wrong. Maybe it was when his mother left or when he found out why she did. Maybe it was when I tried to explain something that couldn't be explained, not without tearing apart what little innocence he had left. But Daniel wasn't a boy anymore. He was 23, full of his mother's stubbornness and none of her warmth. He stood in the doorway that evening, shoulders squared, jaw clenched, as if he were bracing for battle. I, on the other hand, was just tired. He didn't even look me in the eye when he said it. "You're not family, Dad. Not anymore." And then he left. The slam of the door echoed through the house, shaking the picture frames that still held the illusion of a family, birthdays, Christmas mornings, vacations by the lake. Moments captured in color, long after the people inside had gone gray. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. The rain outside began to fall harder, tapping against the windows like an impatient reminder that life was still moving, even if mine had stopped. It's funny how a house can feel alive when it's full of laughter and utterly hollow when it's not. Every room still smelled like memories. His mother's perfume, Daniel's cologne, the faint scent of burnt coffee from mornings that started too early. And yet, that night, it all felt like someone else's home. That's when I knew something inside me had changed. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't even feel anger, just a strange, unfamiliar calm. Like I'd finally reached the end of a long, crooked road and realized there was nothing left to lose. By morning I made coffee, stared out the kitchen window at the gray sky and said it aloud, not to anyone in particular, just to the quiet. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not family anymore. It should have been a moment of defeat. But instead it felt like the beginning of something else. I didn't know it yet, but in 1 week Daniel would come home to find the locks changed. And the house he thought was his, gone. Daniel wasn't always distant. There was a time when he'd sit beside me on the porch, his legs too short to reach the floor, asking questions about everything, clouds, birds, why the sun disappeared at night. I used to tell him the sun never left, it just needed rest like we did. Back then he believed me. Back then I still believed myself. Things began to unravel long before the words "you're not family" were ever spoken. It started with the quiet resentment that crept in after the divorce. His mother Claire had been gone for nearly 6 years, but her shadow still lived in every corner of that house. The truth about her leaving was complicated, too complicated for a boy who only saw his father drowning in guilt. Claire's affair hadn't just broken our marriage, it fractured Daniel's idea of love, of loyalty. He blamed me for it, though he never said it outright. Maybe because I'd been the one who worked too much, who missed birthdays, who failed to notice her growing absence until it was too late. But there was more to it than that, something Daniel could never forgive. When he turned 18, he discovered that Claire's affair had lasted years, and that I had known. I hadn't confronted her. I told myself I was protecting Daniel, keeping the family together until he graduated, until he was strong enough to understand. But secrets rot in silence. And when Daniel found out, all he saw was weakness. A father who let his mother betray him and still stayed under the same roof. After that, every conversation between us became a negotiation of patience. Meals were quiet. The sound of clinking plates became our only dialogue. When he moved out, I thought time and distance would heal him. Instead, it hardened him. He came around less often, only when he needed something: mail, a document, an old photograph. Each visit was shorter than the last. He stopped calling me Dad, I became Rick. At first I laughed it off. But the day he looked me in the eyes and said, "You chose pride over truth," I realized he didn't just resent me, He despised what I represented. Still, I kept the house the way it was. His room untouched, trophies lined neatly on the shelves, the bed always made. It was my quiet rebellion against time, my way of saying you'll come back. But when he told me I wasn't family anymore, something broke in me that couldn't be mended with hope. That night, I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls as if they were memories fading beneath my fingertips. This wasn't just a house. It was a monument to everything I'd lost: love, trust, even my son. And as I stood in the doorway of his empty room, I whispered something I hadn't said in years. I forgive you, Claire. I didn't know then that forgiveness was only the first step, and revenge the second. The days after Daniel's outburst blurred together, mornings that felt heavier, nights that stretched too long. I kept expecting him to call, to apologize, to say that anger had gotten the better of him. But the silence remained. It was an odd kind of punishment, one that made every clock tick sound like accusation. I filled my hours with tasks that didn't matter, mowing the same patch of grass twice, rearranging books I'd never read, pretending I was waiting for something other than disappointment. But deep down I knew, the house had stopped feeling like mine long ago. One afternoon I found a letter tucked inside an old drawer, Claire's handwriting, slanted and delicate. I hadn't seen it in years. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. "Rick," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I never came back. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I hope one day Daniel understands that I left because I couldn't live in a lie anymore. You were always stronger than me, even in your silence." Her words hit harder than I expected. She was wrong about one thing though: silence isn't strength. It's surrender. And I'd been surrendering for too long, to guilt, to loss, to a son who'd stopped seeing me as human. That night, Daniel came by unannounced. I heard the gravel crunch under his tires before he even knocked. When I opened the door, the air between us was thick with old arguments waiting to be spoken. He didn't step inside. "I just came to grab some stuff," he said. His tone was clipped, like every word was a favor. I nodded. "Your room's the same." He brushed past me, eyes darting around like he was walking through someone else's home. For the first time, I noticed how much he looked like Claire. The same restless energy, the same way of holding back emotion until it turned cruel. He picked up a photo frame from the mantel, a picture of the three of us at the beach years ago. His jaw tightened. "You kept this?" "It was a good day," I said softly. "For you, maybe." He put it face down. Something inside me snapped then, not in anger but in clarity. I realized I'd been keeping this place alive for ghosts who never planned to return. "Daniel," I said quietly, "what do you want from me?" He met my eyes finally. "Nothing. Not anymore." He walked out without another word, leaving the door open behind him. The wind carried in the faint scent of rain. I watched him drive away, taillights glowing red like the last trace of something once warm. For the first time I didn't close the door. I just stood there letting the cold air seep through and thought, maybe it's time to let go. By the next morning the decision was made. I called a real estate agent. Selling the house wasn't an impulsive decision. It was deliberate, quiet, calculated, and strangely freeing. For years that house had been my cage, built from promises that had long expired. But as I signed the first stack of papers, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. The agent, a young woman with a sympathetic smile, asked me if I was sure. "People hesitate with homes like this," she said gently. "You've lived here a long time." I smiled back. "That's exactly why it's time to leave." Over the next few days, strangers walked through my life. Couples with hopeful eyes, families with noisy children running through hallways that had once echoed with Daniel's laughter. I watched them from the porch, remembering how I used to stand there with Claire, her hand brushing mine as Daniel chased fireflies in the yard. Back then I thought we were endless. It's a dangerous thing, nostalgia. It can make you believe the past deserves saving. But the truth is it doesn't. It just lingers waiting for you to surrender. When the house sold, the agent handed me the check with a quiet congratulations. I stared at the paper, realizing it wasn't about money. It was about release. Daniel didn't know yet. I didn't tell him. Maybe I should have, but after everything I wanted him to feel what I had felt: displacement. The shock of coming home to find that home no longer wanted you. A week later I received a text. "Need to pick up the rest of my things. We'll be there tonight." I didn't reply. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I parked across the street and watched from my car. Daniel's truck pulled up to the driveway, his old driveway. He got out, keys jingling in his hand, that same impatient posture he'd inherited from Claire. He walked to the door, tried the lock. Then again. Confusion flickered across his face. I saw him step back, glance at the windows, his expression twisting from frustration to disbelief. A new family's laughter echoed faintly from inside, the sound of children, the smell of dinner wafting through the open window. Daniel froze. He understood. He looked around, searching as if the truth might still be hiding in the shadows. His gaze landed briefly on the street, and for a heartbeat, our eyes met through the windshield. I didn't hide. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came. Just a silence so heavy it pressed against the night. Then he turned, got back in his truck and drove away, slower this time, like a man carrying the weight of something he'd never meant to lose. I sat there long after his taillights disappeared, staring at the house that wasn't mine anymore. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like an intruder in my own life. I felt free. I didn't go back to the neighborhood for weeks after that night. There was no reason to. The chapter was closed, the door, quite literally, locked. But endings have a way of echoing no matter how far you move from them. I rented a small cabin on the edge of town, surrounded by tall pines and the kind of silence that doesn't accuse. In the mornings, I'd sit on the porch with my coffee, watch the mist roll off the lake, and think about how strange it was to start over at 56. My life had been measured by the spaces I'd filled, a husband, a father, a provider, and now it was just me. For the first time, that felt like enough. Every so often, I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, tempted to send Daniel a message, something simple like, "Hope you're doing okay." But I never did. Some silences, I'd learned, are better left undisturbed. Still, I kept his number saved. Some habits are too human to break completely. One evening, as I sat by the fire, I pulled out that old letter from Claire again. The paper was worn, edges frayed from being read too many times. I thought about her words. I hope Daniel understands one day. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. But understanding isn't forgiveness, and forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means letting go of the version of love that hurt you and learning to live with the quiet that remains. I'd imagined the sale of the house would feel like revenge, a way to make Daniel feel the same emptiness I had. But sitting there now, with the fire's warmth flickering against the window, I realized it had never been about revenge. It was about release. About accepting that love, in its truest form, doesn't always survive truth. A week later, a letter arrived. The handwriting was unfamiliar, careful. It was from Daniel. "Dad, I went by the house again. The new owner said you sold it a month ago. I guess I deserve that. I don't know why I said what I did that night. Maybe I just wanted to hurt someone the way I've been hurting. Mom would have hated what we became. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say I'm sorry. Daniel." I read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it beside Claire's letter. The two of them, the people I had loved most and lost hardest, finally side by side. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the trees. I closed my eyes and let the sound fill the room. For the first time in a long while, the silence wasn't sharp. It was gentle. Almost like forgiveness. And in that moment, I realized, maybe home was never the house at all. Maybe it was the quiet peace that came after I let it go. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about peace, the kind that comes only when you stop trying to fix what's already gone. My son lost a house that day, but I found a home inside the silence.